And then if he's talking here, this is another one, is to just focus on your forefinger, and then you would just ask questions, and maybe if the finger goes once, it's no, twice is perhaps, 3 times yes. And then you're looking through a bunch of different methods there. So this is about opening a passive connection with the invisible world. And then he's coming down here to use automatic writing. In other words, you put a pencil in your hand, extract the spiritual hand, and then he's saying put a rubber ring around it just to hold it, but you can do whatever works best. And just let it start writing. And it just says put a couple sheets of paper there and ask a question, then see what gets written. I'll let your spiritual hand be moved by this guide. And he's saying to deceased friends, relatives, members of your family, and there's no such thing as hence and beyond, that there really is something there in another dimension. And then he's just going to the different automatic writing here. The automatic method, the hand moves absolutely automatically. Well, the magician knows what he wants to write, or the spirit's going to write. You could get messages in foreign languages. The inspirational method. In other words, you will know beforehand what's going to be written. It'll come to your mind, and then it'll just be written. I've tried these methods before. I usually use a pendulum. I'll usually, on this whole thing here, I'll usually just use a pendulum with a pie chart, and I'll write different potential responses I could get. Extract the spiritual hand with a pendulum dangling, like he's talking about, a couple inches above the table, and just let him ask a question or think a question, and just let it move. And you'll see what you do, and you can actually feel that you're not moving it, that there is some force moving it. And just focus on your hand being extracted, and just leave your elbow as it's rested on the desk. Sit there, so just your spiritual hand with a pendulum, it'll be moving. Most of these methods I never really did. He's going over them. I suppose you could try practicing them. Then in the end, it's just the questions you could ask and the answers you get. Choosing questions, you always have to consider that the beings you are contacting are subject to laws different from yours. So you might get answers that aren't quite what you want. They might be a little bit from a different perspective than you're expecting to receive. So then you can just keep asking more and more questions. Some developed beings can give you correct information about time, events, future. So this is basically about that. This is from 81 to here to 83 in the PDF. It's basically just about learning to extract the spiritual hand for that of communicating with beings in another dimension. He's giving you the different methods. You can take which one you want. You can just read this yourself and choose what you want. I usually use a pendulum, or I use the finger method here, like he says. I'll just put the hands on the table, extract this, like the spiritual part of the index finger, and then just let it kind of move up and down, the finger move up and down, 1 for no, 2 maybe, and 3 for yes. Usually do that. I just ask questions. It seems the most easiest way I've done, unless you really want to get into it and go through all these methods. I suppose doing it might, make you better at doing it. But that's pretty much it for here at the end. What he's talking about, the main part of the whole thing, once again, repeating it, is extracting the spiritual hand, the spiritual finger, through communication with the fourth dimensional beings. And then as far as the answers to questions you get, it depends on the questions you ask for the answers you're going to get. And you really have to look at every angle for your question. Maybe start out with asking a certain question, and then if you don't get the answer you want, rephrase the question from a different perspective and keep working until you can try and get the information you're looking to get. So, and then the last thing he's just saying, as soon as the scholars develop the spiritual senses, as you progress more and more and practice the exercises more and more, you're not going to need the passive communication with invisible ones, because you yourself would be able to achieve anything, with such a being could inform you. You really wouldn't need the being to inform you of anything, because you'd be able to actually see it for yourself, being more developed and in tune with the elements around you, and you're balancing and harmony of them. And then at the end, the passive communication only serves the purpose to be convinced that there's existence of another world. So I guess that's when it all gets summed up at the end. That's really what this is about. It's just convincing you to build your faith or belief that it exists. And that's the end of step 5. The summary of it is just the space magic, putting yourself into objects, the projection elements, all words, first through the body, the solar plexus, and then the hands and the fingers accumulated it. And just the last part was what we just went over. Passive communication with visible ones. And that's it for step 5. And probably to go through this, who knows how long it'll take you, maybe, go over it and over until you know each of the exercises from the step really good and you're confident. And you feel good. You can come back to all these steps, go back to one, find which ones you maybe are doubtful about and don't feel that good about, and go back to doing them over and over again until you get them down better to the point that maybe you don't have to go back and do them. Just go by your gut instinct. Reaching this step here, 5, it'd be months. Probably would be 3, 4, 5 months. Just to get to a point where you're somewhat good at doing it, and then you're going to want to go back and go over it and do it again. And these videos, I'm actually making these videos to try and avoid the idea of getting confused, because I've tried going through this, and then you lose your place and start all over again sometimes. Because I've gone through this book a bunch of times, and I was trying to find a way to avoid the confusion of going back to the beginning and going over things. But each person's going to progress at their own rate, so you have to go by your gut and see how well you do with each exercise, and when you feel confident to move on to the next.